Welcome back to Aggie Pride, a UC Davis football podcast. I'm Brock Galvin. Today we've got a special one. I'm joined by my friend, former UC Davis quarterback, and our sideline correspondent, Daniel Alfaro. Danny takes us behind the scenes of last weekend, from team meetings and Fast Friday to traveling with the Aggies to breaking down the big win in St. George. We talk about everything from the discipline of the quarterback room to the energy of Coach Plow's speeches to the electric second half comeback. Plus, Danny shares some classic stories about his own walk-on journey, Aggie Pride, and why being around the team still matters years later. Before we jump in, a couple of reminders. Make sure you're subscribed to the pod on Spotify for $5 a month. You can also follow on Apple or YouTube so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. We've got our Aggie Pride hats, which I'm rocking right now, available now, perfect for your game day swag. You can also grab yours through the link in our bio or on the show notes. All right, let's get into it with Danny Alfaro. We've got a new home for Aggie Pride, a UC Davis football podcast. Visit AggiePridePodcast.com. It's the hub for everything. All our episodes, ways to subscribe for early access, and our brand new Aggie Pride classic hats in navy or beige. While you're there, sign up so you never miss an update, and follow us on all our socials for game day content, throwbacks, and behind the scenes. And don't forget, like, follow, and share the pod so we can keep growing the Aggie fan community. Heading to Seattle to cheer on the Aggies this September, join the Cal Aggie Alumni Association for a pregame tailgate at Husky Stadium. Tailgate and ticket packages are on sale now at alumni.ucdavis.edu/events. Also, spend homecoming week with the Cal Aggie Alumni Association. Starting on October 8th, CAAA is hosting a variety of events, including the annual Friday Night Social at Sudworth Brewing. Check out all events at alumni.ucdavis.edu/homecoming. Aggie Pride is proud to partner with JG Graphics in Rancho Cordova, the spot for custom apparel, embroidery, and printing. Aggie alum Pete Povey and his team helped us design and produce our Aggie Pride hats, and the quality is next level. If you need gear for your business, team, or next big event, Pete will take care of you from first idea to final stitch. Support a fellow Aggie and check them out at jg.graphics or visit their shop in Rancho Cordova. Welcome back to Aggie Pride, a UC Davis football podcast. I'm here with our live sideline reporter and famous grad of UC Davis, former quarterback and current Aggie Pride co-host, Danny Alfaro. Danny, thanks for joining, man.
Thanks a lot, Brock, man. This is an honor of a lifetime. I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. So, I'm fired up, and I'm coming off an epic 24 hours, 36 hours being with the Aggs all weekend, and it turned out the way we were hoping. So, I'm on a high right now. I'll probably crash at some point today, but man, it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like a roller coaster just during the game there. And it's I was thinking about it a little bit earlier today, like what a weird start to the year, just all things considered. Yeah. Like the no contest game was super weird. Last night's game was super weird. And for those of you who are YouTubers, you can see Danny's got a dope backyard with a container bar ready to host football alumni events at.
Yes, sir. And you might even be able to hear the chickens squawking. They might have just laid an egg. So.
The chickens, the chocolate
Tune
lab.
them out, maybe.
I'm suffering at Newport Coast with the in-laws, and the kids are running around on a park, but they might come in at some point and interrupt too. But we figure we'll start with not just describing your backyard, but like kind of describing yourself for those who aren't as familiar. I know a lot of our listeners do know who you are, and we've given you're probably at the top 3 in the shout outs, the Dwight's Whiteout shout outs for the first 2 seasons of the pod. But, my first year was your senior year. And so we just had a slice together, but it was memorable. And obviously that San Jose State game we've talked a lot about was memorable. But for those who don't know your story, could you share like a 2-3 minute version of your UC Davis football story and a little bit like what you're up to now?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the coolest like through lines of the podcast that's been super organic and not intentional at all is just like the theme of walk-ons being a big part of Aggie football. And that's how I started. My dad had played against the Aggies back in the late 70s, and I wasn't getting recruited. And he was like, "Hey, what about going up and playing football at UC Davis?" They always had great quarterbacks. My dad had played against Kenny O'Brien and Coach Morosky, and he was like, "They always had great quarterbacks and big O linemen." So like, we got in touch with Coach Biggs. We actually flew up to Davis the day before picnic day and drove from Sac Airport like through the farmland. And I'm a SoCal kid, right? San Dimas born and raised, and Damien High School down there. And I'm like, where are we, man? Like, what are we doing here? And then you get into the oasis that is Davis, and the sun's out, and it's the day before picnic day, so it's a fun day on campus. I sat in Coach Biggs' office, and as opposed to at UCLA, they were like, hey, you could come out and do a 1-day walk-on tryout or whatever. Coach Biggs like, yeah, so you'll come out in January after the '05 season, and you'll come in January '06, and we'll give you a full spring ball, like winter and spring ball. You'll be with the team. And that appealed to me a ton because it was giving me a chance that I didn't have. And, I think some people know, I've told a lot of people, but Tim Plow was a quarterback 2 years ahead of me, and John Grant was the starter at the time. And those two guys were huge mentors. John Grant gave me the playbook day one after, that winter meeting, right? It's like January 6th and you January 7th, like right after winter break. And John Grant handed me the playbook, and I swear to God, I was in that playbook. And within a couple of weeks, I knew the formations and the shifts and the motions and all that. And so I figured, at the time, John Grant was a starter. Tim Plow and Matt Engel were behind them. Clayton Tunney, if you guys remember, was going on his Mormon trip, and then he transferred to UCLA. And a guy named Ryan Smitty was a really good athlete, and he was maybe going to move to receiver. And so there was potentially a spot, and it worked out, man. And that was one of the coolest days, late May, June, when Coach Biggs told me I'd made the team. And so then I was a backup from there on. Got that one game, like you said, against San Jose State because Greg Denham had tweaked his knee. Almost pulled that out, man. But, 8 seconds left to Jurovich, and that'll haunt me. But still a highlight of my career. And, being a backup quarterback and seeing, how, being in that room, only one QB can play, right? And every QB knows that. And so when you don't get the nod that you're the starter, you got to prepare like you are, and you got to support the team. You got to be a leader. I took a ton of pride going into practice, against Dozie Amajoye and Jeremy Scott. I used to run scout and just point them out, be like, I'm coming at you, and just try to challenge those dudes to try to make them better. So practice was where like I loved going to practice. Like some guys trot out there all slow, but like that was my, I still got to play football, right? Like I was there, like every opportunity I was just going to like soak it up. And I still, I worked really hard. I was on a fantasy football draft with Justin Fiebig and Sean Mraz and Tom McConnell and those guys Thursday night before I left. And Matt Brand came up, and he was a huge influence, man. And like, if you worked hard, you were one of his guys, right? So I always tried to like work hard in the weight room, work hard in the quick meeting room and stuff like that. And, I got to play with a ton of great players. Bakari Grant was on earlier, and, I love that shout out. It gave me chills, But I love my career so much that, I'm fully bought in and love Aggie Pride. And when Plow got named the head coach, it's like, come on, man. Like it just was building on the momentum that Hawks started. And so that's a little bit of like my Aggie career in a nutshell. That's why, I'm so fired up, because the Aggies gave me a shot, and being an Aggie football player is just so much fun. And I look back on that like it's a cherished thing in my life for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because like I said, we didn't have a ton of time together, but I had a lot of respect for you, and I definitely viewed you as a leader when I was a freshman on the team, and then not really running into you until actually work a little bit a few years
I remember
ago,
that.
just like stopping by the job site that you were at that time when I was transitioning industries for my career and was learning about architecture and construction. And then again, running into you last year at the Cal game for the first time
Mhm.
since that work, connection. And I think like you said, there is this theme of walk-ons that organically, not intentionally, has happened.
Sure. Right.
And then you use that phrase like Aggie Pride, which we like beat into the ground, and some people are
Hmm.
like, okay, yeah, we get Aggie Pride, but it's almost just like pride of the program. Like there's this
Absolutely.
pride that is very clear that you have for the program, like hence you going on the trip this past weekend, hence you being involved and staying close with Plow and a lot of the teammates. I feel like I've stayed in touch with like a handful of guys really, really close, but
Hmm.
not necessarily like the masses until we started the podcast. And it's been really cool to connect and honestly get to know a lot of guys for the first time ever. Cause
Right.
I've said this before, I was just kind of quieter in college. And so I didn't necessarily get to know the guys as well as I would have wanted to. But I think, it'd be interesting to hear kind of what you're up to now briefly. And then if you want to transition us into like, honestly, like, the itinerary of the weekend, like, it would be cool
Yeah.
to know, like, any anecdotes from even the flight
Yeah.
there and,
Yeah.
golf
Definitely.
with Flush and that sort of thing. So, yeah, fill us in on, like, what you're up to now, and then
Yeah.
take us into the St. George trip.
Definitely. So you touched on it. You and I connected a few years ago through work. So I've been in construction my whole career. Right after college, I went to work for DevCon Construction in the Bay Area. We've been the largest GC, the number one GC in the Bay Area for 20 plus years. Built stuff like Levi's Stadium. Aggie alum Joe Crummett was involved in building Levi's Stadium, Earthquake Soccer Stadium, and Google, Apple, Stanford, Santa Clara, the works, right? And you and I connected because you moved into like architectural skin and glass systems, and I was building an arena for the Sharks like AAA hockey team, the CUDA. It's called TechCU Arena, and so you and I met and walked the site. And the reason I think that's really cool, and to bring it back to Aggie Pride, is I've shared with any of the coaches or the staff or the administration or players like, hey, you may not want to go into construction or civil engineering, which was my major, but like just reach out and we'll talk and what career you might want to go into. And I guarantee you one of my teammates or a teammate's teammate is in that field. And like, I think that's one of those ways we all can support is like making the connection so that, when the coaches are recruiting, be like, look at all these guys that have graduated and been hugely successful. Right. And you come here and that resource of that alumni group is available to you. You're in the Bay Area, you're in California, like, the world is going to be your oyster with the Aggie degree, the Davis degree, and the Aggie alum network, right? So to tie that kind of back in there, right? So I've had a really awesome, like blessed career to do a lot of cool stuff, and it allows me to do a lot of cool things and go to sporting events and work on cool projects and stuff. And so that's what I've been up to. But I don't know if you want to ask any questions there or you want to go transition into the weekend.
No, I mean, I think if anything, just like a yes and amen for sure. I
Yeah.
think it's like you said, and we've talked about it with some other guys too. And maybe it's just a reminder for people because even as like a parent now, like you say something to your kid, but then someone else says it and they actually
Yeah.
do
That's
it.
a good point.
And sometimes,
Yeah.
like even on the pod, like maybe other people have said something similar, but a different voice, a different experience, a different relationship. Like some people know you really well who are our listeners. And so for players too, like this is just a reminder because there's an intimidation factor. There was for me. I mean,
Absolutely. For
I
me
would
too.
probably say even a few years ago in reaching out, like I was in tech sales for a decade, like a lot of people who played football and had a successful career there, but was really burnt out and wanted to shift to something different, had a cool
Yeah.
opportunity. And so I was like, I don't know this industry though. And so even reaching out
Right.
to you, I remember thinking like, "Wow,
Right.
man, I'm gonna show up and I'm just like kind of clueless at this point." And so
Right.
for people who are maybe lacking that experience or confidence or just need that extra like push, there's a
Absolutely.
ton of dudes. There's a ton of dudes. Like
Absolutely.
literally email
Right.
AggiePridePodcast@gmail.com or send us a
Absolutely.
DM and we will
Right.
connect you
Talk to
with one of
Flush.
the many.
Yeah.
And talk to
Yeah.
Flush. That's
Talk to Flush.
the
They were doing
czar.
the Evo. They were doing the Evo program for a while, which is really cool. I thought they had a lot of potential, and I don't think it's dead. I think they're just gonna remodel it, so to speak.
Okay.
But like another real world example was I went to the QB camp on June 7th, I think, and Miles Hastings was there, and he had just gotten back from Canada. He talked to you guys about how that was short and sweet and not kind of the vision he had hoped for. But you know, he had shared that he had gotten off the phone with Sean Mraz, who'd been in, you know, sales for Google for decades, right? And so, and he had talked to other guys, and he was doing it right, where he was talking to the guys like, hey, how is it working for a big company? How is it working for this type of company? What's that role entail, right? Like, and again, if you know, even if it's not your field or your desired like culture, it's helpful to talk through that with somebody who's been in a long time and help you, you know, find what you're looking for. There's no bad questions. You know, I think you and I are speaking for all Aggie alums and former players, and in expressing a desire and a willingness to answer that call and like give those guys whatever kernels of wisdom, whatever life experience, lessons learned, all that stuff, so that they can, you know, go out into the world and find their path, man. So I think, yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
Yep. All right, man. So it's August 29th. You travel up to Davis and you check out their Fast Friday.
Yeah.
And take it from there, dude. Like,
Off
give
to the
us some of the
races.
highlights of the trip. Like, and we'll get into the game, but maybe like a few minutes on just some of the things you might remember from the weekend.
No, definitely. No, I started a little earlier than that. I got to work Friday morning at 5 a.m. we were trying to get a fire alarm final, and you know, those are crunch times. So we were in the fourth quarter there, got it over the finish line. So we still have some work to do to close the game out work wise, but left and got into Davis at about 8 a.m. and there was like a team meeting kicking off the weekend at 8:30. You know, got to hear Coach Plow speak to the whole team. And then, you know, one of those cool things of being on a road trip, I was able to do it last year in Montana on Friday night before the game. And then I was able to do it Friday morning. This time was sit in on the quarterback meeting with Coach Shelton and the boys. And, you know, the takeaway from that is Coach Shelton has that room like dialed, right? And a couple times throughout the weekend, I had heard, you know, by Thursday night, the hay's in the barn, right? I had heard it from, you know, multiple people that like, you know, by the time Friday morning rolls around, we've done all the hard work. We've come up with all the plans. We've put in the work, right? And now that should instill a confidence that we're going to go get it done. But back to Coach Shelton's QB meeting, you know, they're all on the same sheet of music, right? They've prepared all week for, in this situation, third and short or third and long or in the gold zone, as they call it, right? What are we looking for? What are our keys? Are we keying on the safety down? Or are we keying on the safeties wide? Are they in a, you know, cloud, or are they, you know, running with the motion for a man? And how does that inform our pre-snap, right? And those guys are just, you know, there's not a lot of like back and forth. It's just like, yep, that's what we're going to do. Yep. In this situation, this is what we're looking for, right? And that goes from Caden to Grant Harper, who's ready as a backup, and to step in at a moment's notice, right? And trainer Cleveland, true freshman. So like, you know, I was asking like, he got the nod to travel, right? And that's what I did. My first travel game was TCU in 2006 because Matt Engel was redshirting, and I knew the playbook inside and out. So they trusted me to travel to TCU and put on the headset. There's a great photo of Plow and I, you know, signal and doing all this, and those guys are doing that, right? And so that was the takeaway from Coach Shelton meeting, was just, you know, focus. He used the term with you about being neutral, right? And I kind of saw that throughout the weekend. And into practice, they were, you know, the Fast Friday practice was disciplined, it was structured, but they still wanted to, you know, execute and finish strong going into the weekend. So that was kind of Friday morning. And then traveling out there, you know, that was fun. It was cool to be with the team and I got to chop it up with Scott Gordon and Scott Marsh on the plane. And that's how we connected about, you know, maybe feed them, you know, what I was seeing or conversing. And Scott and I talked post game too. So that was fun. And those guys, you know, Scott's been on the pod a couple of times, Scott Marsh too, and Bob Dunning, and they're huge fans of the pod. And so they were like, oh, you're the sideline reporter and this and that. So that was cool. But yeah. And so, Friday night, like I've told everybody that listens to me, right? Like Coach Plow has been like, hey, come be around the team, right? And we go back to ways we can support. And he means it. Like Coach Plow is not just saying that to say it. He means it when come be around the team, come to Friday night fights, come, come to practice, right? Come to meetings. And this one, I was out to dinner with Flush and Jane Art, who's, the OG, and, they endowed the D-line coach, Club Fred coach for Jerry Brady. But yeah, so I missed the fight, but it was Hearns versus shoot, I'm blanking. I gotta hear my notes. It was Hearns versus Duran. And I didn't get the whole thing, but I think the message was, Hearns knocked him out in the second round. So it was like, let's go in and take care of business, not screw around like Mercer, where we'd like kind of let him hang around. Like let's end it early. And one little tidbit was I saw Caden after. I was like, hey man, how's that fight? Have you heard about Tommy Hearns before? He goes, man, that guy's a killer. Like we got to do that tomorrow night, right? Like we got to take it to him, knock him out. And so, and then, Plow, the other reason why I encourage any player to get to a game, be around the team, is because if you get to hear Coach Plow speak, man, you will be ready to run through a wall. I kid you not. Like, and Flush mentioned, like, when you listen to Plow speak, you see the UC Davis education in action, because Plow is a history major. He, well-read, well-studied guy, like interested in a ton of stuff. And he weaves all that stuff into his speeches. He was talking about how, like the Depression era, people were struggling and they had to like reap what they sowed, and they had to like work hard to get what they could get. And then his big message, I think, was like, I think some of us think we're great, right? He's like, I want you to know you're great, right? And every time I hear him talk, he talks about love, and I love you guys, and I it's like love being with you guys. I love watching you guys find joy 12 Saturdays of the year. And I think, I think it's so authentic. It's never hollow. Like, and last year in Montana, he had everybody, go give everybody a hug, right? And like dozens of players, coaches all came up and gave me a hug, first time meeting me, all that stuff. And so like, it's really real. And so like, I keep saying it, like, if you can be around the team, if you can get to a home game, if you can travel to a road game, and be with the team and kind of watch them, from afar, and kind of see how the whole place operates, it's really, really cool. You'll have so much passion for Aggie football if you aren't already there, and it'll even like ratchet it up, right? Like really, really let you buy in, because of like, he'll have you ready to strap it back on, man, and like put the pads up, lace them up, and go hit somebody. But yeah, so that was kind of Friday night, and then Saturday, with it being a 8 p.m. kick, it's a long day. So I was picking people's brain, like, what's going on today? They'll do a walkthrough, and then hopefully these guys will go lounge and take a nap and chill, and then get them fed, and do a light workout, get the blood flow going, and so they're not all stiff after a long day just hanging out. But yeah, so I think those guys on those trips, when it's a late kick, that's a tough thing to plan around. But and really, with all of the travel and like the meetings and the practices and stuff, like I think Coach Plow really instills like a discipline and a structure, right? Which every good team needs. But my sense is that he's not a micromanager or overbearing. He allows people to do their jobs, right? He like he does with the players. Like, if you work hard and you come to work every day and bust your ass for the Aggies, like, he allows you the freedom to go do your job. And I think that just like instills a ton of confidence in people, a lot of, belief and buy-in from everybody to like come to work and really perform. And that goes from Tim all the way down to the equipment staff, the, all the support staff, the athletic department people. Like, I think it's top to bottom. Like, just this program is firing on all cylinders, man. It's cool to watch. But yeah, and then it was fun to play golf with Flush and Rocco and Aggie alum Kai Reese. Shout out to Kai. He was in student government back in the day when we were there. He was a few years older than us, friend of Scott Judson. And so I think he was on student government trying to like, encourage more collaboration with athletics, encourage more like student population and school support of the athletic department program. So I think he's been a big Aggie Pride guy going back to his days. And so it's fun to play golf. Like I said, Flush had 2 pars, which according to him, isn't all too bad. And Kai and I teamed up. I think we closed Rocco and Flush out 4 and 3 on the back 9. Just a little competitive competitive juices
Got
flowing
to a little bit. Got to get it going a little bit.
Absolutely. So I was able to, I birdied the number 1 handicap, and then I birdied the last hole of the day. So that felt good. And, you know, it was just a fun day to be out there. And like, it's really cool for those guys to include me on that. And I think it's one of those things, like, there's a ton of ways to support, right? You guys are doing a great job. I think like every Aggie I've talked to listens to the pod. And so like the way you guys are supporting the Aggies is great. I think, Jane Arp's been a great supporter of the Aggies, but then I think of OGs like Marshall Congdon and James Amos and Jordan Glass and Kyle Ike that go to every tailgate, right? There's that way to support. But again, if you can be around the team, whatever way works for you, there's a ton of ways, but I think there's momentum building. I think you guys can sense it. I think it's really palpable. And I think the more, if we keep growing the tent, right? And that's really been kind of a focus of mine. Like, just try to be a force multiplier. Like, doesn't cost me anything to text, 20, 30 dudes. Like, hey, let's all get to the Aggie golf tournament, right? Or let's all like pick a game and let's get there for homecoming, or let's get there for like the decades games they were trying to do last year. So, I know I'm kind of ranting on a soapbox here, but that was kind of the behind the scenes of the weekend.
No, I love it. And I'm also navigating a workout class that just started
Okay.
outside. So
All
I don't
good.
know how loud it is. So I'm going to continue with you kind of leading the show here.
All
So
good.
people will enjoy listening to your voice. This is what
All
Aggie
good.
Pride
Jump
Live
in if I'm on a rant. I can ramble
No,
for,
it's good. I think it's good, man. I mean,
okay.
I think it's really unique for you to be able to share how much, engagement you were able to have with the program. The fact that you were able to get the time in the team meetings and in the quarterback meeting with Coach Sheldon, get to be able to be there for even time with like the Scott and Scott show, and then of course rubbing elbows with the top dogs with Rocco and Flush and Kai, who I know listens to the pod as well, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
But that I was so excited to know that you were getting those experiences for the community to kind of hear about it. I mean, I think it's unique for you guys to, not everyone gets that. And yet at the same time, like you were saying, there's different ways to, be involved in the program. But I think you have a unique kind of vantage point and just being someone who is a big supporter. So I think, what I'm really interested in, and again, folks have heard like the stream was shit.
Yeah.
And that even Jake Mayer's mom, dude, on our Instagram literally posts a comment like, it's 2025 ESPN Plus. Like, we should not be having this issue. But they were. So for those of us who could not be there and who have babies screaming in our ear, what was it like, Greater Zion Stadium? You talked about the confidence the team had leading up to it, but like the first half and really third quarter was pretty tough for large stretches. And like, fandom is crazy, right? So some people are texting me like, the season's shit. Like, you know how fandom is. Like, you have a couple beers in you and the team looks bad for a little bit. And we're not sure how good Utah Tech is, right? Like, maybe they're better than we think. We're not sure what last week was like, right? And so what did you kind of take away from the game? Like X's and O's. You gave us like it was hot and kind of you shared some environment stuff on Instagram, which I think was good. But I'm more so interested in like the Danny who reads the playbook front and back, who was making mental notes of like what were we struggling with offensively for some of those stretches of the game? Like, why were we having some issues with protection again? Like, why weren't things hitting until all of a sudden they were when the comeback came? So let's start on the offensive side of the ball, like some of your main takeaways and maybe some of the struggles on the early end.
So going back to the Coach Shelton's meeting, right? They had their keys, right? And they were real confident. I took away that they had looked at what Utah Tech did last year, right? And I think this speaks to kind of what happened, which is what we were looking at game tape from last year, and they were looking at game tape of us from last Saturday. And they have a lot of new players. And I think Utah Tech like had nothing to lose, right? Like they didn't have a great season last year. We beat them pretty handily, and we're a good team, and that's pretty evident. I think when you look at the roster and you watch the tape, and so I think what and Plow talked about it is that they have a really good staff, defensive staff, and so I think they cooked up some stuff, man. And you know, Coach Shelton was walking on the plane late last night, and I was like, "Hey, like those keys, like, did they just completely change up?" He's like, "They came with completely different stuff," right? And Plow said the same thing in comments right after the game with Bob Dunning and the marketing staff, the PR staff, that they had him confused. I think Tim even used that word, like that him and the staff were confused by the defensive looks. And Caden was confused. And so I think they were expecting, like, they were game planning for what happened last year. And then that defensive staff on Utah Tech cooked up a lot of different stuff. So I think they were expecting a majority of like high safety, drop in the strong safety man coverage, or like high cloud, like wide safeties. But they were mixing it up. And so I was even a little confused, and my playbook knowledge, like all of the nomenclature and stuff is completely changed. So like when I'm sitting in the meetings and I'm hearing the play calls, like I have no clue of what the formation is and stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's a little part of me that just wants to learn how to playbook again. But and then when I'm sitting there on the field, I'm trying to like see stuff. But again, big caveat here, right? Like we all know that you can only like evaluate and judge and whatever if you're in the room, right? Like we don't know as fans, and you know, even though we're big Aggie fans, like we don't know what the play call was, what a win looks like. You know, if you're going 1, 2, 3, or you know maybe the backside post is wide open, but pre-snap he goes off of it because of the coverage, and everybody's like he missed him wide open, but it grades out as a great play. I think Nick King did a great job of talking about that last week. He was grading out the D line as to what he was seeing, right? But with you know the offense, you can't really be in the head of the coaching staff on the offensive side or even the quarterback because you don't know what they were looking for. You don't know what the play call was, what they checked out of. And sometimes like the best result on a play is throwing it away out of bounds, right? Like that keeps you in the game, right? So that's my big caveat is like when I'm kind of putting out my feels, it's not like a criticism or a judgment of any player, any coach. It's just kind of like what I'm seeing and stuff like that because I'm guessing, right?
For
But
sure.
yeah.
Well, I would kind of interject then. I think, and that makes sense. Like we don't, especially as like people close-ish to the program, like we don't want to necessarily make snap judgments on stuff
Mhm.
where we don't know what the progression was, what the read was.
Right.
Maybe someone else missed the assignment. Maybe it wasn't the quarterback
Mhm.
communication. Maybe it was O-line communication or vice versa on pass pro. And then like, yeah, we never quite get 100% certainty of answers on that.
Mhm.
But I think as a quarterback, there is a different, I mean, there's a reason why quarterbacks dominate in the analyst world. We know
Mhm.
it's the headiest
Yeah.
position that takes a lot of intelligence and football IQ to play, and therefore,
You keep
what
going, Brock. Keep going.
I mean, honestly though,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like even though I ended up playing line in college, like growing up from the age of 8, I was like a fullback, linebacker, running back, tight end type hybrid player. And when you're the middle linebacker your whole life, you're the quarterback of the defense.
Of the offense. Yeah.
And when you really aren't like you know, as I kept playing, like you get less and less athletic the higher levels you go, and so you kind of have to become cerebral and use that part of you. So like, I always
Mhm.
gravitated, and I think that's why I wanted to coach and did for a little bit towards like the
Right.
mental
Right.
side of things. But you
Absolutely.
know, I think for yourself, like let's look at the quarterback.
Mhm.
Really interesting game. He
Mhm.
did have a pick, but then he had the 3 different touchdowns, a couple to Batu and then the one to Zach Jones, and you know, used his feet again. But what was your impression of the way he played for game 2 of his college career? Bank like a champion when you bank with University Credit Union. UCU is the official credit union of UC Davis, and is committed to giving every UC Davis student, faculty, staff, and alum a financial advantage. From low loan rates and financial coaching to high savings rates, including our new Elite Certificate Special, University Credit Union helps you reach your financial goals. Visit ucu.org for details. Use promo code Aggie Pride Podcast to get started. University Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
UC Davis football stands for tradition, teamwork, and having each other's back, especially when times get tough. That's why we're proud to partner with Bold, Paulsner, Maddow, Nelson, and Judson, a respected California law firm with over 55 years of experience helping families and businesses prepare for life's unexpected turns. Whether you're navigating estate planning, probate and trust matters, civil litigation, or elder law, the team at BPM&J offers clear, compassionate guidance through California's legal landscape. BPM&J is deeply rooted in Aggie Pride. The firm is led by Craig Judson, a double UC Davis alum, and the Sacramento office is supervised by his son, Scott Judson, former Aggie Pack MC and past president of the UC Davis Cal Aggie Alumni Association. 4 other attorneys in the firm are also proud Aggies. From starting a family to managing assets or honoring a loved one's legacy, Scott, Craig, and the BPM&J team are here to help with confidence, care, and compassion. Their services include estate planning, such as wills, trusts, and powers of attorney, incapacity and elder law planning, probate and trust administration and litigation, conservatorships and guardianships, and general civil litigation. With offices in Walnut Creek and Sacramento, BPM&J serves clients throughout California. Visit bpmnj.com to schedule a free consultation. And this season, listeners of the Aggie Pride podcast will receive an exclusive $500 discount on the preparation of a comprehensive estate plan. Just mention the podcast when you book your free consultation with either Scott or Craig. Please note this message does not constitute legal advice. For personalized guidance, contact BPM&J directly. The firm's attorneys are licensed only in California. Bold, Paulsner, Maddow, Nelson, and Judson. Powered by Aggie Pride.
This episode is sponsored by Larison Real Estate Team, Bob and Jan Larison. You already know the name. They've been incredible supporters of UC Davis football, this podcast, and of course, they're Lance's parents, now cheering him on as he suits up for the New England Patriots. Off the field, Bob and Jan are one of the top real estate teams in the region, helping folks buy and sell across Idaho and Eastern Oregon. Whether it's a home, land, or investment property, they bring experience, hustle, and heart to every deal. So if you're looking to make a move or just want honest guidance, check out LarisonTeam.com or follow them on Instagram at Larison Real Estate. Huge thanks to Bob and Jan for backing Aggie Pride. The Aggie Football Fund provides essential gap funding for the UC Davis football program, empowering the team to access vital resources for player development and program success. It also reconnects and engages former football alumni to maintain the legacy of Aggie Pride and perpetuity. Through direct and flexible support, the AFF bridges funding gaps while fostering a thriving alumni community. Visit AggieFootballFund.com for more information.
Caden Pinnick.
I think, it's obvious that he struggled early, right? Plow even talked about it. And I think as a unit, right, the offensive unit, they were trying to identify the new stuff that they were doing and then find what was going to work, right? And that just took longer than Plow wants, right? But I'm still super impressed by his poise and his. Dwight and I were texting about his this morning, and it goes back to Coach Shelton and the word neutral, right? Throughout the game, I didn't see him panic, I didn't see him slump his shoulders, right? There was times I saw him frustrated with himself. But that's because he holds himself to a high standard. And he knows he's got to be better, and he's carrying it on his shoulders, right? He's the quarterback. He's got to lead this team to victory. But constantly, I just saw and it goes back to that belief. They've put in all that work, right? All that preparation leads to confidence with humility. That it doesn't matter who's on the other side, and they've repeated this over and over. It's it doesn't matter who we're playing against. It's how we play, right? And they just weren't playing to the Aggie offense that we're seeing. And so I think they were doing some weird stuff with dropping guys when they were showing that bringing pressure. Those DNs were they looked undersized to me, but then they were causing us fits. And I think there was a mix of like coverage sacks, but also sometimes where they were getting pressure, which was a little surprising to me because I felt like our O-line was a strength against their D-line. But so it was just kind of like a perfect storm of different coverage, different looks, different stunts, different like they brought blitz sometimes, they faked it and then dropped. I think that's what happened on that interception. He had a guy open like on a slant, it looked like, and I think the guy like had been up to blitz and then dropped right into where Caden threw it, and he made a big play, he jumped up high and got it. So it was tough to watch because the Aggie defense was like giving the ball back and 3 and outs and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I was nervous there for a good while. And because really in the first half, like it was one big play, right? Jordan Fisher broke loose, went 66 yards for a touchdown. But, everything else was kind of like we'd have a good play and then we'd go backwards, or a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of punts. And that's just not the Aggie offense, the high potent, like, Aggie offense we're all used to seeing. And so, 8 minutes left in the third and they come to life. And those 24 unanswered points is what I think the real Aggie offense is. I think they had kind of figured out what Utah Tech was doing on D. I think for the most part, they were in like cloud quarters type safeties real wide outside the hashes until they got in the gold zone. And then that's when they kind of came down and went into man, single high, but real low. And they were running with all the motions. So that's I may be not like 100% on that, but it kind of felt like they had settled into a kind of a high, and maybe they were just trying to protect the lead. And we've all seen that where you get safe. And if you give the Aggies like some space in a too high safety where you know what they're going to do, we were running it down their throats, and then we were dicing them up, right? And it was long sustained drives. Stacey Dobbins got loose for a big one, which was cool to see. And so once they came to life and kind of figured it out, it was off to the races. And so it, like I said last night, it was a tale of two halves. And back to Caden, I just think like that consistent belief that he has in himself, but also that Plow has in him, right? I didn't see Coach Plow or Coach Shelton like get too fired up or, like really in his ear, like, got to do this or that, right? I think it was just as a collective group, they were trying to figure out what was going to be successful to start doing, making drives, making plays, working the ball down the field, 3 yards at a time. The running backs, the three-headed monster of Carter Vargas, Mateo Perez, and Jordan Fisher, man, that's scary because they all came in and they were all falling forward. They were all getting to the hole, and sometimes they'd break loose, but sometimes they'd have to put their shoulders down, and they were, falling forward from the middle of the third quarter on. And I really liked seeing that kind of dual threat of a really potent running attack and then also, some good ball control type of plays. But then when we got into space, those guys could break it open.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there's a couple places I want to go with it. You mentioned the running back room, but again, because of your kind of quarterback mindset, people don't want to hear me say how much I love Jordan Fisher anymore, but damn, that 66-yard burst on the second offensive play of the game, dude, like reminded me of what I thought when I saw his huddle highlight tape from, the Westview High School in Oregon where he played, and just remember being super impressed and thinking like, interesting how we got this guy. And some of the Oregon recruits that we've gotten, you even mentioned the third string quarterback, the true freshman, like he was someone who really stood out to me in the fall camp practices, who I'm excited to see kind of what happens. Like you said, only one quarterback plays over time, but was really impressed with the running back room. Most of all, Jordan Fisher. I thought Mateo Perez gave us some really good change of pace and tough running, and hopefully he's okay, because he obviously went out there at the end of the game and it looked like it might be somewhat serious. But I'm more interested in kind of your thoughts on the receiver room. We time and time again, like talked about the tight ends at the, just last year and leading into this year, we've talked about that three-headed monster at tight end as well. And from a sheer like production standpoint, it's been a quiet start to the year from those guys, like in terms of
That's the
actual,
word I was
like,
going to use. Yeah.
yeah, just like
Yeah.
from catching the ball standpoint. But
Correct.
we know that they're involved.
Correct.
We know that we're still using them. We know we still have multi-tight end sets that are really important and crucial to our game. But it's the three-headed
Right.
receiver monster, dude. And now I've said
I
three-headed
think so
monster
too, yeah.
3 times.
I know, 3 times in 3
Like,
groups.
but literally,
I
that's
had that in my notes too, man. So like, we're
okay.
on the
So
same
yeah,
page.
talk to me. I mean, we
Yeah.
all know Batu's dope, and he was burning, and
Yeah.
he made the play of the game, dude. I mean, the game-winning touchdown was speed. But Stacy had a great game, and Zach
He did.
is
Yeah.
showing some flash too. So like, what do you make of our short, speedy wideouts?
I had the same thought. I was, looking at I got the depth chart here in front of me with a bunch of notes and stuff. And you're right. I had three-headed monster keyed and starred next to the running backs. And then I went through each receiver, and we kind of know about Sam Batu, right? And he's the playmaker. He's the X. He's the game breaker. And even before the touchdown run at the end, his sluggo seam, right? I saw Jake Mayer post like sluggo seam, that's like something you work on all game, right? Like you hit him, you run it with Sam on the backside as like maybe like a win or a hot route, right? And you run it and you run it and you run it. And then like you see what they're doing. And that's what the guys up in the booth are looking at is like, are they really coming down hard on that post? And can we hit that? And he was wide freaking open, man. And that's because he's a threat on every play. So yeah, we could talk about Batu a long time, obviously, because he had a great game. I wrote down that Stacey Dobbins is like our Ayuk, right? Where, like short in stature, right? But like the guy's a playmaker, and he was getting into zones. Like he was settling in the pocket on sticks or spots or like, and he was kind of like a safety blanket a little bit, like your Z safety blanket type receiver that Caden found a couple times. But if you get the guy the ball like early, which Caden was doing later in the third and the fourth, and on the right shoulder, he's turning up field, and that's when you break him, right? There was a couple where he caught it, turned up, made a couple guys miss, and fell forward, right, for like 7-8 yards, and those are great plays. And then he did it. He'd turn one way, he caught it, and then turned over his opposite shoulder, and that's when he broke it up the sideline, right? And so, yeah, I thought he was, crucial and could be that Z guy that gets in open areas. And then, like you said, Zach Jones had a good touchdown, caught it over the middle and broke free into the end zone. And then the other guys, they call him Nando, and then the other kid, Tyler Hennessy, they were playing a lot, and they could be potential like reliable depth, right? Where give Stacey Dobbins a breather. It just seems like, yeah, they may not be the biggest group, right? But they're experienced and they're fast and they're a threat. So, and Plow knows how to use those guys. So, and then to touch on the tight ends a little bit, yeah, it might be quiet, right? But those guys are in the trenches, right? And they go big sets a lot. They shift them around. I think Winston Williams had a big play on a punt return, I think it was, or a punt where he tackled the guy and got up all fired up. So those guys contribute like blocking and in the trenches on but they're also contributing. I think Mitch Dixon's on special teams, a bunch of them. So those guys don't come off the field a whole lot, and their time will come, right? There'll be a defense where it makes sense to get them involved. And those guys are kind of the leaders, I think, like Mitch is a captain, and Ian and Winston, like just their presence around the team, having been there a long time, being seniors, just being really accomplished. Like, whether they catch a bunch of balls in a game, they're having an effect on the outcome, right? And so sometimes it's going to be like a well-rounded running backs go off, receivers go off, tight ends makes big plays, kind of like Montana, right? I feel like that was a really well-rounded team offensive victory. And then sometimes it's going to be, one facet of the game contributes more, but I think everybody's involved and it's always a team win. And I think we've talked a lot about offense, right? But at some point, I'm sure you want to talk defense because, man, Blue Forces, I've never seen a Blue Force like this, like 2 years in a row. They attack, man, and they feel inevitable. Like they're just going to keep putting pressure on the offense to make a mistake. And they forced a lot of mistakes. And that's not, expecting turnovers hasn't always been, at least in my career, like we've always wanted the defense to create more turnovers and stuff like that. And tonight, or last night they did it, and it's a special group, man. So I know I kind of shifted gears, but I'll go
Well,
wherever you
no,
want to go, Rock.
and you're taking us there. You already know what you're doing. And I said this around this time to Nick King last week. I said, pretty crazy, but we've already been talking for like 50 minutes. And that's kind of the it's like the pro con of doing this is like it's so easy to talk
Yeah.
about football and it's so fun to talk about stuff we're passionate about, but the time
Right.
flies. So I think that was
It
perfect
does.
segue to the defensive side of the ball because even though your experiences as a quarterback, like that mindset and perspective gives a lot of, insights that a defensive minded guy like myself might not be looking at. So I'll go first because I do
Go ahead.
think it stood out to me some of the other levels. I'm normally honed in on the front and what's going on there because I think that that is
That's where it
one of the
starts.
biggest I mean that's one of the biggest indicators and we've said it time
And
and
if we're
time
going to
again
go all
like
the way in the playoffs, it's going to be in the trenches.
it's it.
Yeah.
It's it. It's what everyone talks about. Even like national reporters get that like that's the thing. And so all the speed in the world, and yet we've watched SEC dominate college football playoff year after year because of the trenches. And so I will start at the back end though. I mean, it's the second straight week where Rex Connors is flying around, dude. And the amount of plays that not only Rex, but Rex and Porter are the two guys at the ball is just crazy. I mean, and I'm sure they were motivated. They're playing back in their home state. I know they had some buddies at the game, and I've just been when you have high expectations for someone and then they exceed them, kind of like what we've seen with Caden. Like Caden Pinnick's kind of exceeded our expectations each of the first two games,
Absolutely.
which is hard because we have
Right.
really high expectations.
We
Similarly
do.
with Rex
Yep.
and Porter, like they are exceeding my expectations each and every week, which is insane because I think they're gonna have 10 to 15 tackles every game, but just really impressive. Porter had the fumble recovery. Rex had a breakup, but they combined for 25 tackles. And then sticking with the secondary, I think, Cole Batson was someone who got a lot of playing time against Mercer, and he still played a lot this game. But Kalani Riddick really had a standout game. It felt like he was flying
Man,
around.
that hit.
Yeah,
That hit.
yeah, dude. He had that big hit. And the forced fumble early in the game, which was a big moment. But he's someone who's an all conference guy and very experienced and yet a Sacramento native. So he's like back on home turf playing with the Aggies and just someone from fall camp that I talked about during some of those pods. I was really impressed with, and so good to see him produce, and good to see that depth that we've talked about from the secondary. And Jaden Stanley's the Menlo Atherton kid who was another leader type guy who the program's highlighted at press conferences and stuff, and to see him be productive and hop in with the TFL was good as well. But I gave a little, pep talk about this guy last week, and to see him come up and make a really momentum changing play at the interception and the return with Drew Cofield. I mean, I called him the young buck on the socials, but like, dude, the young buck is rolling. And I love the way he plays. I love his tenacity. I'm sure everything is not perfect. If you're the coach, there's things that are there to clean up, but it's sure as hell nicer to clean up some stuff when you have a kid getting interceptions, taking it back 30 yards. And so I would say a really strong performance from the secondary. And then coming to the linebacker room, dude, like, and this is where I'll kind of get into our before the Big Sky player of the game. So I want you to think of your offensive player of the game. I'm gonna give the defensive player of the game. But I feel like even though Porter had 10 tackles, even though Syke had the big deflection on the second to last drive, like for me, it's Nate Richena, and it's because of the big moments that he showed up at. He had a TFL early in the game that ended a drive. He had a forced fumble, but then the interception was a really athletic play. And he is a big kid. I mean, you saw him in person. He is a big
he is
dude
impressive. Yeah.
for a middle linebacker.
Yeah,
and
he has a presence.
Texas
Yeah,
couldn't do any.
Shout out Connor Kirkpatrick and Cale Turner.
Yep.
Connor texted like the Rachenna came through. He's the pride of Monte Vista High, right? So like
That's
those
it.
guys are fired up. But yeah,
that's
that
it. And
play.
Our boy Mr. Brown was EJ
Brown. Yeah,
he coaches at Monte Vista too, and so that's what I wanted to say for those of you who aren't tracking. Connor played with Danny and EJ, and is a Monte Vista assistant coach, Monte Vista High School in Danville. And I briefly mentioned actually the Texas Ohio State game. I noticed Cal's tight end transfer, Jack Endries, another Monte Vista guy. That school puts out tight ends like no other who end up going to the NFL. And so they opened up with Foothill High School in Pleasanton, which is a pretty solid EBAL school, and a 49-21 win week one. EJ was saying like, hey, tough kind of week one matchup for us, but got the win. So shout out to the coaching staff for our guys, and shout out to Nate Richenna.
Yeah, Connor's the D coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, shout out Nate Richenna, man. That was a big play. But yeah, Connor's the D coordinator, and then EJ's the DB coach. So it's kind of cool to see two Aggie legends get together and coach some high school football. And I know that's your cup of tea. You're a big high school football guy. So
I love it.
I love it. It's fun to watch those guys.
Yep. All right, man. Well, give us your before the Big Sky offensive player of the game. Who you got?
Dude, that's a tough pick, man.
It is tough. There's dudes.
I think Caden, came on strong, and once they figured it out, he played really well. Obviously, and I'm partial to quarterbacks. Definitely struggled early, but like the composure he had was great. You've talked about him a lot, Del Oro. But then I can't. It's tough to pick between Jordan Fisher and Sam Batu, man. Like, I was just waiting for Batu to break out. Jordan Fisher, like you guys have been talking about him for a long time, like his potential just to be a game breaker, always a threat to take one to the house. So it's kind of a cop out, but I'd either give it a 3-way tie or a 2-way tie between Jordan Fisher and Batu, and then throw in Caden for coming through. I think it was a team effort, man. So that's kind of a cop out, but
no, it's good. I will executive it and say Jordan won last week, and so his high school got some shine. And I'll say that Del Oro opened with a 39-14 win over Thomas Downey and Modesto School that they should handle pretty well. Del Oro's dope. Hunter Paul gets it. We all get it.
Yeah.
And then
where's Batu from?
Yeah, he's a Temecula Valley kid, and that is like I would say one of the lesser Temecula schools. Temecula's got good football. Vista Murrieta Valley, but he's a Golden Bear. He went to Temecula Valley. And if I look up their week one, they got trounced. They got shut out 30-0, which tracks from what I know of Temecula Valley. They missed Sam. They missed the speed. And Sam was a late bloomer. I feel like he's a late bloomer, and he's coming to his own. So, well, we got to wrap it up. As crazy as it sounds, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be back on in a couple weeks. We have to hone in on the exact day, but before we kind of close it out, just kind of want to give you the floor, like any closing thoughts on the weekend, on the game. I know you didn't necessarily touch on defense, so you could talk about some of the defense takeaways, but if you want to ramble for a handful of minutes here, give you the final word.
Yeah, let me just clear through my notes real quick.
Yep.
I'll try to keep it brief. On D, I thought I've talked a lot. They played a great game, right? I think early in the first half, any of the points that got put up, I think is more of a factor of, you're going to lose that field position battle at some point, right? And they were on the field a lot because of the time of possession difference. So, I don't fault the D at all. They were holding strong, right? And just sometimes that's the way it's going to work out. I thought the dual quarterback thing was an interesting wrinkle. I mentioned that on one of those posts you put up. The fact that they kept bringing in number 5 to run the option, they might have done some of that last year, but there was another Aggie guy that played with Kenny O'Brien and Scott Berry and Coach Pete. And he was saying, like, when they're running the option, you just got to hit the quarterback under the chin, man. You got to, like, make him scared and want him to pitch it every time. I don't know, maybe, in hindsight, they might have done that, and that's hard to do. I know the whole reason the triple option has existed so long is because it forces you to make tough decisions. So I thought those were a couple wrinkles. In the second half, I thought the defense was lights out, man. I had so much confidence every time we needed to stop that last drive. There's no doubt in my mind they were gonna stop him, right? Like, I thought that's a learning experience. We had 24 unanswered points, but we got the ball back with 3:12, and I would have loved to have seen that. Would have been like another level, and maybe that lesson's coming for Caden is like, how do you get a first down in that situation, right? It's 3 minutes and 12 seconds left. You got to go close the door, right? Let's go figure out how to get a first down. I can't remember. We might have run it 3 plays. I think it was 3rd and long, and we ran it, so it might not have been in Caden's hands now that I'm thinking about it. But as an offense, I think you got to figure out a way to go get 1 first down and then victory formation, right? So that's something. I think in the second half, the sequence that like was when I was at my lowest, right, was when we threw the interception on the first drive of the 3rd quarter, and then first play, Utah Tech goes for it, right? And I love when Plow does that a lot. Is like when you get a big turnover and you're on your side of the 50, take a shot, right? Like punch him in the mouth. And I think Coach Coombs had that thought because he brought, I don't know if you saw it, he brought Rex down to the boundary and blitz Rex from the backside, and he got picked up by the running back and almost got to the quarterback, and then they threw right to where I think Rex would have been, right? And it was a big play. So we gambled and we got our hands caught with the cookie jar, and that sometimes happens. So if we're not losing the possession battle in the first half, and maybe we take that risk and it pays off, the defense is pitching a shutout at that point in terms of how well they played. So I just wanted to mention that sort of stuff. I thought like Sam Goligowski had played a lot against Mercer. I think he played a little bit less this game, but then he capitalized on his opportunity, had a big pass breakup late. So I thought that was cool. It just speaks to like, no matter who's playing, if you got a lot of run one game, a lot less run the next game, it's every man up, everybody's contributing, all that stuff. I think Syke had a big pass breakup. Shout out to Zaire catching and getting 3 yards. He made sure to remind everybody as he was walking onto the plane. So that was really
he's
cool to
pumped
see.
about that. He's way too pumped about that. We see you, Zaire.
Yeah. And then I got to shout out this guy. So funny story I should have mentioned earlier, but we're walking out onto the plane, and Jackson Plow got to travel. Mighty Jack, the quarterback. So he's walking. It's Coach Plow, Jackson, Coach Shelton, and I'm following behind. And I say, hey Jackson, what was your favorite play from last week? Because him and his brothers traveled last week, as you saw. And he goes, oh man, the Jordan Fisher punt block, absolutely. And he goes, good job, Dad. Way to ride Jordan Fisher, man. He's such a shifty guy. You're gonna have to like ride him tomorrow night, right? And it reminded me so much of Coach Yost's daughter in Remember the Titans, just like relentless. Like he'll tell Coach Shelton like what he thinks. He'll tell Coach Plow what he thinks. So I think all of us should have a ton of pride or a ton of confidence that Coach Plow is going to figure out how to, dial up and dissect defenses, and Coach Coombs to shut big offensives down, because we got a genius in our hands, genius in the making on our hands in Jackson Plow. And I asked Coach Shelton, I was like, he's going to be a coach. And Coach Shelton was like, nah, man, he's going to be a GM. And so shout out to Jackson Plow. He was my sidekick on the sideline all game. He and I were, going ups and downs together, and we had to keep each other like fired up, and our faith in the Aggies paid off in the end. And so, and I'll leave my final thoughts, man. Like, man, I love football. It was fun to be out there. Like Kalani Riddick's big hit, like it sent shivers into my bones. Like, I don't know if I could do that anymore. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I could get out there and throw it around, but those hits, and sometimes those guys flying around and cracking heads and hitting pads, it's just like, it's a young man's game. And so, and seeing the guys just like exude confidence and, knowing, believing in their preparation and all that stuff, and finding joy, like all that stuff isn't hollow, man. It's authentic. That's why, back to Echo and Plow's be connected to the program. Like if you listen to Plow talk, if you see these guys, like go through their preparation, you see them on the field. If you see their like steady confidence, just being neutral, like never getting too high or low, never losing faith, like it'll like fire that up in you, like that Aggie pride. If it's dormant, if it's alive and well, like you will get the chills, you will be inspired. And so, love football. Plow, I just, I can't say highly enough about Plow. I think if you think about all the programs that have been successful, it's about discipline and consistency. And Plow's made no secret, like he's going to be here a while, right?
Yeah.
And I think we need to like support him, all come together, rally around, like continue to push the momentum. He's dead serious when he talks about a national title, right? And like you see kind of the structure he's put in place, the people that are in the building, the quality of the coaching staff, like and I was having a conversation Friday morning at the Fast Friday with a kid, freshman, could be a playmaker. And he said he came to the Montana State game last year and heard Plow talk before and after. And, we lost to Montana State. So usually that's not like a great recruiting, like closing word, right? But he's like, I heard Coach Plow talk. I saw and heard and believed in his like faith in Aggie football, his pride in it, his like, pride in being the next steward of Aggie Pride, and how he cared about the players. And like these players, they can see. And I think all the talk about finding joy, all the talk about love and preparation and trust the process, not the result, right? I think that gets through to guys, and that's going to lead to recruiting, and that's going to lead to player retention, right? Like the players believe that the coaches have their best interests at heart and that they're getting prepared, whether it's the next level or for life. And I think, guys are going to want to come here. Once they're here, guys are going to want to stay here. Like Landon Larison and Rex Connors, like they stayed because they believe in Aggie Pride, and they're the best examples of Aggie Pride. Like I get so much happiness from meeting a guy, whether he's a starter and a star or, a backup. And that like they're what I have taken away from my time as an Aggie of like, that's what I believe Aggie Pride is, to see those guys like become the next examples of, continuing that legacy because of, Plow, but also because of just their buy-in is super cool. And so I was down at times, like my halftime like report was like a little somber, but like I think you could tell, man, like I think the world of Coach Plow and the whole Aggie staff and stuff. So like I think the sky's the limit, man. And then I've said it over and over, like I think Plow's message about supporting the Aggies in any way, I just want to like continue to champion that, to continue to try to do what I can to like convince guys to come back, come to games. I think I'm gonna be at the home opener, and then I think there's a bigger group coming for October 11th for homecoming, and then I'm gonna go out to Bozeman. So like, last year I traveled on my own to Montana, but still was able to like connect with the team and stuff. So like, if you can make it to a road game like Cal Poly, hit up Flush, right? Flush and Kitchens, and they'll kind of connect you. The guys are all busy, coaching staff and the players are all busy, but Flush has been great, man. He was our DFO, and he's been with the Aggies for 18 years, and that guy is Plow's right-hand man, and he wants to see us continue to reach the next level. So support the Aggies. Figure out what's best for you. Can you make games? If you're in town or close enough to make games, that's a great way to get connected to the team. I think the players really enjoy it. Like, you go on a road trip, sometimes it's a lonely road trip, right? And that's another takeaway. It kind of reminded me, like, Southern Utah, we fly to Vegas and then a 4-hour bus ride, and then we're sitting in this like kind of old hotel and we're on our own. But like when they see some of us like there and we're, high-fiving, they see the love between me and Plow, or Plow and all his guys and all the guys we played with, like I think it just continues to reinforce what he's trying to build there. So whatever way, makes sense for you to support, like I can't stress it enough. Like, I'm fired up. I think there's a ton of momentum, ton of passion. Plow's the right guy to lead us, and let's all do our part to like, let's keep pushing. Let's go. Let's get there. Let's not be satisfied with quarterfinals. Let's be in the conversation with North Dakota, South Dakota State, Montana State. Like, one of my first snaps was against Montana State. We beat them 45-0, right? And so that's like a little bittersweet to see them be successful, right? And like, so we've had success against these programs, and we should be in that conversation in the top. We should be top 10 every year, and nationwide conversation, and it just continues to compound on itself. And I hope that's where we're going, man. I believe in it really strongly, as you can tell, but the more people we get into that tent, the bigger our army is, and we go to battle with anybody.
Well, like you said, man, it's you started with, I love football.
And I think, that's like where I'll kind of end it is all these stories, all these different experiences. And, you've said, you can tell. Well, yeah, we can tell because you're excited and people can see and feel excitement. And I think it's an exciting time for UC Davis football. It is. It's probably the best time, at least in my experience. Dwight has the JT O'Sullivan D2 excitement, which was different in its own way and probably just as exciting in a different way. But you mentioned a couple things, and I'll close with it. Like you mentioned Jackson and hanging out with him, and I posted something on Friday night. I get to announce the local games at our high school in our small town of Martinez, and my son is 5, and it's the first time he came with me and sat in the booth like from 3:30 to he left at like halftime of the varsity game and was like pretty dialed into it, and he's 5. And I remember being the kid going to practice with my dad who coached and my older brother who played, and those are like some of my favorite memories. And Clayton Valley High School didn't have lights when I grew up, so I would literally get out of middle school early to go to the games with my dad and brother. And so just thinking of like Coach Plow and his kids having those experiences, and that's some of the beauty of
Mhm.
like UC Davis being what it is, right? Like is not
Yeah.
it's not like an Ohio State where maybe you don't get to have your kids like at midfield at every
Mhm.
practice, but
Mhm.
it's just cool from that standpoint. And, I think, moving forward, like football is something you can, like you said, do when you're young. And it is a harsh reality to no longer be able to play anymore. But like these are the nuggets that can keep someone into it, which I mean, we go through all sorts of ups and downs in life. Some people are crushing it professionally, and we love to share those stories. And some people have a bunch of kids, and we love to share those stories. But some people might be struggling professionally. Some people might be struggling to have kids. Some people might be struggling to whatever in life. And I'm pretty sure if my memory's correct, your wife's a therapist, my wife's a therapist, and sometimes that comes out
Mhm.
in what I say. And so
That's right.
I think it's just
Yeah.
a good reminder, like for whatever season of life you're going through, sometimes you feel like you can only show up and I would say this even about like church to go spiritual for a second. You only show up to church when you're feeling like good enough is something that some people would say. And I hope people don't feel that about UC Davis. Like I can only show up to the game if I'm crushing it at work or if I just bought a new house or if I'm just working for this company.
Mhm.
It's like, who cares? Like, yes, we want everyone to be
Right.
successful. Yes, we want everyone to
Right.
like have a good family and healthy marriages and all those things. But like sometimes
Right.
you need to show up when your life's an utter shit show too. And I've been in those moments of life too. And it is hard to show your face, but like maybe if someone's listening to this who's going through that too, like I'm sure Coach Plow, I'm sure Flush, I'm sure us would love to hang out and see you too. So we'll end on that random thought. But thanks for showing up, Danny. Thanks for going on the trip. Thanks for all
Of
the insights,
course.
dude. This was rich, is the word
Of
that comes
course.
to mind.
Yeah.
And the good news is we'll do it again
Oh
in a
man,
couple
I
weeks.
love it.
So
I can't wait. I can't wait.
yeah,
It's gonna be a great season, and I have a blast doing it. So, and you guys are doing a great job. I think the when I talk to guys, it's like, hey, you listen to the pod, you listen to that one. Which one's your favorite? And it was something that like it seems so obvious in hindsight, but for you and Brock or you and Dwight to like put it together, it's like, man, we were missing this. Like,
yeah,
it fires me up. Like I listen to them as soon as they go on Spotify. It's just like it's cool, and like I get chills every time. Sometimes there's tears. Just remember like one guy's story, Darius Livingston's story, like kind of got me, and
mm,
just like those stories, like really touching. And like you said, like there's a whole network of people, man. And
yeah,
whether it's professionally, like you're looking to figure out what your next step is career wise, or you need anything, like you need advice, like there's a whole group of people that we all have Aggie Pride, and that makes it such a tight knit community, even though we don't talk like every day, right? And I was talking to another guy who played college football. It's like the beauty about football sometimes is like it prepares you for the rest of life.
yeah,
Like there's gonna be some times that are hard, but like that adversity is baked in to the experience, right? Like overcoming adversity is part of the thing. And so it's like, in my life post football, I always have like some confidence going into it or a belief that I'm going to get through it because I went through a ton of adversity.
yeah,
and it just prepares you and hopefully leads to some belief in yourself that like you can get through a lot. But if you can't, like, that network and that family, because it does feel like a big family, to your point about Jackson and all the guys and us staying connected and all that. Like, I think it's a good point. It's not random, man. It's true. So
For sure.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, thanks, dude. We'll catch up soon. Go Aggs. And
All right.
yeah,
Go
we'll catch
Aggies.
up. And that's a wrap. That'll do it for today's episode of Aggie Pride. Huge thanks to Daniel Alfaro for hopping on and sharing his passion, some stories, and a breakdown of the Aggies weekend. You can hear the pride he still carries for UC Davis football, and it's contagious. If you like what you heard, take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It helps us reach even more Aggie fans. Don't forget to subscribe for $5 a month on Spotify, or follow on Apple or YouTube, so you'll always be the first to hear the next episode. And finally, show your support on game day by rocking an Aggie Pride hat. They're available now at AggiePridePodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and being part of the Aggie Pride community. We'll be back soon with more stories, more breakdowns, and more Aggie football. Tuesday night recording with Bobby Erskine for the Washington weekend coming up. Go Aggs.